In this video, I'm only giving my ranking of every theatrical Batman film that we've gotten, including 2022's The Batman. I waited to do my marathon on every theatrical Batman film after I saw The Batman, just so I wasn't thinking about the marathon too much while I was watching The Batman about a month ago. After I saw The Batman, I did the marathon, including watching The Batman, and now I'm going to have this video out just in time for The Batman's debut on HBO Max. So this video will go in order from my least favorite to my favorite, so sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. Batman and Robin from 1997. A film so ridiculous, so goofy, so campy that it will be studied for generations upon generations to wonder or figure out what the hell happened with this movie. For the direction that they were going with Batman in animation in the 90s, when it came to that darker and just great stories and stuff like that, to put a film like this out is just like, what the hell was that, man? The direction that Schumacher started with Batman Forever just gets turned up to 11 or 20 or 1,000 with this film, with everything about it. I do think the film actually has reached a status where it's so ridiculous, so goofy, that you can actually have some fun with it, and it's oddly rewatchable when it comes to the goofiness and just the weirdness of stuff like Mr. Freeze and his one-liners. But the film certainly has earned its reputation as being the bottom of the barrel on anyone's live-action Batman list. Batman Forever from 1995. The film sees Val Kilmer take over the role as Batman and Joel Schumacher take over in directorial duties. Kilmer is whatever as Batman. With Schumacher, he really emphasizes the crazy. Craziness when it comes to the story, craziness when it comes to the atmosphere, and craziness when it comes to the villains. This leads to the film's two villains, the Riddler and Two-Face, really just hamming it up and really trying to out-ham each other in each scene that they're in. Though I would be lying if I said I wasn't entertained by Jim Carrey's Riddler, just because Jim Carrey was dynamite in the 90s. Ultimately, the film takes Batman in a direction that I don't think most people would prefer, going with a sort of more bright and non-darkish version of Batman, and that's not really where things were heading in the 90s, especially with the TV series. I don't think it's a terrible movie or an unwatchable film, but definitely not the Batman film that most people would prefer. Batman Returns from 1992, the second and final Batman film to be directed by Tim Burton. The film did make a few improvements compared to the original 1989 film, such as giving us more Batman. I did love Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. She's probably my favorite Catwoman. And the movie still carries out the same sort of style and flair that the first film did. But unfortunately, the film's circus-type atmosphere and just the weirdness when it comes to the story involving the Penguin, the more it goes on and on, it's just like by the end of the film, you're just like, well, what the hell was that? That was just a really, really unnecessarily weird film. There's just a whole lot in the film that I could have done without, to where ultimately I do think it was a step below the 1989 film. The Dark Knight Rises from 2012, the finale of Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Rises works as a finale for the series, and there definitely is a feeling of finality as you're watching the film. It doesn't work very well as a Batman film, mainly because Batman is taken out or absent through a large part of the film. Instead, you get a whole lot of Bane. And Bane definitely is a force to be reckoned with, and he did have a sort of really nice presence throughout the film. But you definitely could have used more of Batman in the film to give the film more balance and a sense of fun and rewatchability. That is distinctly lacking in this film, that rewatchability factor, just because Nolan seemed to be a little bit too ambitious when it came to the story and forgot to make a film that would be sort of largely rewatchable and not just watchable in the sense of watching it as a conclusion to the trilogy. There's still great signature Nolan moments when it comes to filmmaking, and the film has some good stuff, like the Talia twist and Catwoman was good, but the film was definitely the weakest out of his Dark Knight trilogy. Batman the Movie from 1966, the film version of the Adam West TV series. Obviously, you have to watch this film through a different perspective, given its 60s cheesiness and goofiness. And with that perspective, it's actually a fun film to watch, with its 60s goofiness making it pretty entertaining when it comes to its characters, dialogue, story, action, and whatnot. Basically, every single aspect about the film. And with all that, it actually tells its story in a fun and entertaining kind of way, and there's a whole lot of fun to be had watching this film. Sometimes in life, you have to appreciate the past to appreciate the present, and you have to appreciate the previous version or the past version of Batman to understand why we have the current versions of Batman that we have today in live action. 2016's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice doesn't execute the conflict between our two heroes in the manner we all would have liked. That and the movie has a number of other issues, although I will say the Ultimate Edition does make the movie a bit more coherent at the expense of an inflated runtime. What the film does get right, aesthetically wise anyways, is Batman himself. Wow, what a great suit, great look, and I thought Affleck was just great and perfect as an older veteran Bruce Wayne. That in the film gave us by far the best hand-to-hand Batman fight sequences we've ever seen in film, with his fight versus Superman being excellent, and especially that warehouse fight. Wow, that was just beautifully executed. The only thing really kind of off-putting was Batman ruthlessly killing throughout the film. Yeah, that's really not something Batman obviously does, and I chalk that up to just a poor creative choice by Snyder, as he's prone to do throughout the comic book films that he does. In the end, though, I still think this film showed that this particular version of Batman was right for the DCEU in a Justice League universe. Batman from 1989. Tim Burton's Batman film, for the most part, earns its title as a classic, though it does, in my opinion, misfire on several aspects. Burton seemed more interested in showing off the Joker rather than Batman in his own first film. There's also the aspect of Batman doing several un-Batman-like things throughout this film. But thanks to Burton's distinct visual style and Danny Elfman's great score, the film has impeccable style, which is a large part of why it held sort of its iconic status that it does today. It's not the perfect Batman film by any means, but for the most part it works, especially given the standards for Batman in live action at the time. I give this one a point 0.5 in the ranking just because Zack Snyder's Justice League from 2021 shouldn't count as an official Batman film, just because it is a Justice League film. But since Batman obviously is present in there, I wanted to include it, and just to say that this film continued to show why this version of Batman was right for a Justice League universe. And yes, the film was a vast improvement over the 2017 cut of Justice League, even if the film ended up being longer than the frickin' Titanic. The Lego Batman movie from 2017 provides a humorous, fun, entertaining, and visually interesting take on a Batman story. Lego Batman is obviously a crazy, fun character, so to see him get his own movie was great, and the movie carries out the basic formula of what worked with the original Lego movie from 2014. 2022's The Batman pretty much nails what people's expectations would be for a noir-style darkish Batman film. I was skeptical initially of whether or not Pattinson would end up being a good Batman, but he ended up being up for the role and ended up being a really good Batman, even though his Bruce Wayne was non-existent, but that's because it was likely intended to be so. In the film, Batman is the true face, and Bruce Wayne ends up being the mask that he puts on. It's definitely the most psychotic live-action Batman that we've seen, but one that truly embraces the real detective element throughout the film. The Riddler is obviously different from the classic and main versions of the Riddler that we've seen before, but it definitely is different, but it works for this particular story and universe. All the other characters like Catwoman, Penguin, and Commissioner Gordon meet what people's expectations would be for live action these days. I didn't like that the film was basically 3 hours long. That's way too long, and they should have cut that runtime by about 30 minutes. But in the end, the film still sets up an exciting future and series for Batman going forward. Batman Begins from 2005, the much-needed reboot of the series 8 years after Batman and Robin. The film is a real showcase of what true vision can do for a series, as Christopher Nolan's direction, as well as Christian Bale taking over for the role, helped give us the Batman story and film that the world just didn't know that it needed. It's such a smart, innovative, and well-thought-out film. As you're watching the movie, you're just like, wow, this realistic vision that Nolan had for Batman is just really working and made for a great movie. As an origin story, it's only rivaled by Raimi's Spider-Man 1 and Iron Man 1 for being among the best origin stories for a superhero in a film. The Dark Knight from 2008. The Dark Knight is the pinnacle of epic filmmaking, with a script, story, villain, and other things that are just once in a lifetime when it comes to a movie. In talking about the villain, obviously this version of the Joker is just one of the most legendary characters ever put to film, just being epically quotable, his look, ideology, and the chaos he unleashed upon the city. I'll never forget that feeling I had coming out of that theater opening weekend in 2008 and just saying, wow, that was the best movie I've ever seen. And to be honest, I almost still kind of feel that way. For those reasons and others, I have it as the best Batman film ever made. So there you have it with my ranking for every theatrical Batman film. The role of Batman and the films themselves have basically become the equivalent of James Bond films, where we look forward to what different actors and directors are going to bring to the film. I think for the next sequel to the Batman, I would like to finally see a proper live-action version of Mr. Freeze, but we'll see what we get going forward, but it should be fun regardless. As for this video, that'll do it for these rankings. If you made it to the end of this particular video, thank you for watching.